Coming up next on Tech News Today, the guy that took down WannaCry was nabbed by the FBI for Kronos malware. Disney resorts will soon get a Star Wars version of The Void. Facebook is balancing fake news with related news that isn't fake. And should we be afraid when AI creates its own language to talk to other AI bots? All that and more coming up next on Tech News Today.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today, episode 1824, recorded Thursday, August 3rd, 2017. This episode of Tech News Today is brought to you by Grasshopper. Stay connected and run your business from your mobile phone with Grasshopper. To save $50 on your order, visit trygrasshopper.com/twit.
Welcome to Tech News Today. This is the show where we tell you everything you need to know about the world of technology today. I'm Megan Maroney.
Oh, yeah. I'm Jason Howell. And top story, we're starting big today because this one actually was spreading like wildfire leading up to the show. Marcus Hutchins, also known as Malware Tech, he's a cybersecurity researcher who you may remember helped to stop the WannaCry ransomware code in its tracks when it blanketed the world this May. And now it appears he's in FBI custody. Joining us to talk about this is Ian Thompson from The Register. How's it going, Ian?
Well, it's been one hell of a day. Certainly, it's ups and downs, quite literally. I mean, it started off with the news that he'd been arrested, and immediately the supposition was that this was in some way related to the WannaCry thing, and the FBI got the wrong end of the stick. And then at lunchtime, I was calling around prisons at the time, or jails, trying to find out where they were holding him, and then we got a statement from the DOJ saying, actually, he's in FBI custody and he's been charged with creating malware in 2014 and selling it online. So he's basically gone from hero last week to zero this week. I mean, obviously, the presumption is that he always has the presumption of innocence.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the FBI generally don't pull a move like this unless they're pretty sure of their facts. And based on the deposition, they are very, very sure of their facts.
So tell us a little bit about Marcus Hutchins. I mean, I know I've heard the name. I know we talked about him briefly when WannaCry, when it seemed like he happened to stumble upon a kill switch for WannaCry. So everybody kind of heard his name a little bit then. What is his reputation outside of that prior to WannaCry? Has it been as a white hat hacker or?
Oh yes, I mean I've been viewing conversations that he was working with other security people and was quite, well respected within the field. I mean, he was doing pro bono work on security. He obviously knew his stuff. He's been active pretty much since he came of age, and reasonably well known within the industry, but very low profile outside of the industry until WannaCry came up. And then when that happened, I started talking with him, and he was just a bit freaked out because he got press camping outside his door. He didn't know how to deal with the attention, so we gave him some advice and the rest of it. And then last week, he was at DEF CON. He was attending all the parties. He was having selfies taken with him, hiring Lamborghinis, flying through the Grand Canyon, shooting off guns left, right, and center in ranges. Obviously,
in ranges, good.
Oh, yes. I know this is America, but generally you go to a shooting range, unless you're somewhere in Montana and you have some nice open spaces.
Right.
But he was doing, I mean, I've done it myself. It's the standard tourist thing to do in Vegas,
Sure.
Particularly if you're a Brit and you have no experience with these things, go pew, pew, pew in a gun range. It's all good fun. But I mean, he was obviously having the time of his life. He was due to fly back today. Nearly one of the last things he tweeted was talking about how stupid priority seatings were on airlines, and then he just went dead silent. So and then the news came. He got the news out through a friend that he'd been arrested, and he's currently sitting, as far as we're aware. He's just, I think at 3 p.m. he was down in court so that he could be formally charged. But he's going to be spending quite a lot longer time in the US than he would have thought at the time. It's kind of shocking because he was generally, it was just, I mean, and this was something which came up at the show. He was nominated for a Pony Award for his research and just missed out on it. But this was a guy who people actually looked up to, and and still do, because I mean the stuff he did with WannaCry was very good, and the FBI may have got its facts wrong on this one, so we can't prejudge, but it's not looking great. Certainly, there are a number of things which look curious. Let's just say that there was because the ransomware they created was called Kronos. It was an offshoot of Zeus, if you like, which was one of the big banking Trojans. And he's accused by the FBI, or of his colleague is accused by the FBI, of putting up a how to use the Kronos banking Trojan video on YouTube. And on the very same day, Marcus was asking for if anyone had got any samples of Kronos. Now, that could just be a coincidence, but it's a slightly odd one. So, you know, as like I said, we shouldn't prejudge this, but it doesn't look good.
Well, I mean, why would he be asking for a sample if he was the one that created it?
Well, you're generally looking to generate buzz around a particular. I mean, there's so many families of malware out there. If you're actually looking to generate buzz around it, you make it look like security researchers are into it, or it may. I mean, it may just have been coincidence, or it may have been sort of laying the groundwork for an alias later on. So it was just really curious timing, going out exactly the same day that video came out. Well,
it reminds me of how Ross Ulbricht was caught, right? I mean, they finally tracked down that he was posting, you know, before the Silk Road went up, he was posting like, "Hey, you guys, has anyone checked out the Silk Road?" And they finally, you know, traced that back to him. So I guess it's a common thing to try to pretend.
Yeah, I mean, the desire to blow your own trumpet and also to drive traffic. I mean, according to the indictment, they were selling this off for $2,000 to $3,000 a copy of the malware. And from research that we'd done in 2014, this was actually quite advanced stuff, because you could buy for $1,000, you could buy a limited sample of the malware just so you could check it out yourself and make sure it worked. And then for additional money, they would provide add-on software modules, or change the file slightly so that it would evade signature engines on antivirus detectors. I mean, the Kronos malware was a very, very sophisticated piece of malware for its time. So it would be incredibly disappointing if Marcus was one of the people behind this. We're just going to have to see how the trial comes out at the moment.
Now, the timing is also very coincidental in the fact that Alphabay, which is a dark web marketplace, was seized by the FBI last month. Do you have a feeling that this is completely related to that? This is where, as far as I know, Kronos, at least one of the places that it was being sold.
Yes, it was being sold on Alphabay. We were discussing this earlier in the office. I'm kind of skeptical just because of the timing of it, because the indictment was filed on July 12th, and Alphabay didn't go down until July 14th. But, and there's a big but in this, the site was having problems before that. Up to sort of 6 days before it was actually taken down by the feds, people were reporting problems logging in, problems logging out, that the site was up and down like Gestir and Empire. I mean, it was all over the place. So it could have been that they found some evidence when they were doing the initial hacking round in the site before taking it down, and were able to link that to Marcus and this as yet unnamed co-conspirator. So, I mean, they could be related, but I'd like to see more evidence before I call the ball on that, definitely.
I have heard some suspicion that Marcus might have been one of the creators of WannaCry, and that's how he was able to stop it. What do you think of that?
Again, something we've discussed, and again, I'd need to see some very convincing evidence, because the WannaCry, one of the key things behind WannaCry is that it was developed, or the language used within the code is Russian. And as far as I know, he doesn't speak Russian. Now, he is, according to the FBI, working with an unnamed co-conspirator whose name has been redacted out of the documents. That person may be Russian, and he may have collaborated on it. But I think it's unlikely for a couple of reasons. Firstly, he would be drawing an enormous amount of attention to himself for something which he actually committed. And that is fraught, because it's... Take, for example, if there's a murder, the first people who are investigated by the police are family and spouses, because 90% of murders are committed by family and spouses. The first thing malware antivirus and security researchers do is look at the provenance of a piece of malware and who reported it, and just make sure there's no linkage between there. So it would be a very, very high risk move. And plus, he seemed genuinely unprepared for the amount of attention that he got afterward, after this kicked off. So I suspect what was happening is he was familiar with how malware worked. He went into how it worked, and he found a solution. He found a server that could be used for a domain which could be used for the kill switch. I think it's unlikely, but it's not outside the realms of possibility. It just seems to fit a little too well. And as a journalist, you're always very suspicious of stories which seem too good to be true.
But he was, did you know him previously as malware tech or as Marcus Hutchins? Because he was doxxed by the Daily Telegraph, right? Nobody knew. Yeah. Or did you know his name? You don't have to reveal that.
No, you work entirely through handle names. So, and yeah, he was treated quite appallingly by the British press. But such is the way. Basically, the way it works is a journalist is told, go and find this person, or your next review is going to be unpleasant. So they use some journalists will use any means possible to actually do it. But yeah, he had the press camping outside his door. He had, this is a guy whose name was not out in public circulation. His proper real name was not out in public circulation. So he was very much outed by the press, which again, I think mitigates against him being one of the authors of WannaCry. That said, I could be completely wrong. It wouldn't be the first time.
Well, in my novel version of this story, he is. But that's fictional.
That's fiction. Yeah.
It's the kind of thing Hollywood would love. Yeah, but
well,
that's one of the reasons.
And I think we're going to find out a little more information as the day goes on. I think there's going to be some sort of an announcement or whatever, was what I had last read right before coming into here. So I'm sure we'll hear more by day's end, which means that if you're watching or listening to this a little bit after this, you might be able to read up on it, but we could tell you a little bit more about that on tomorrow's show. But Ian Thompson from The Register, thanks for coming on the show and sharing your insight on this. We really appreciate it. We're happy you made it back from Vegas safe.
Oh, you and me both. Safe, sunburnt, and slightly sweaty, but that's as far as it goes.
All right, take care, Ian. We'll talk to you soon.
Cheers. Have a good day.
Bye.
Disney appears to be all in on immersive VR entertainment. We've told you before about the Utah company The Void that creates what they call hyper reality experiences, where you go to a certain location, actually physically go to that location, you don a backpack, headset, other gear, and you experience a kind of 5 senses virtual reality. Now The Void has teamed up with Disney, Lucasfilm, and Industrial Light and Magic's immersive entertainment division ILMX Lab to create a new Star Wars experience.
Oh, yeah.
It will appear in downtown Disney in Anaheim, California, and near Disney Springs in Orlando, Florida. So near those places. Details of the story you'll be immersed in are very slim, but a piece of artwork on StarWars.com suggests that Star Wars Secrets of the Empire, that is what this immersive experience is called, will be out this holiday season and seems to take place near Darth Vader's castle as seen in Rogue One. So, very exciting.
Yeah, well, I'm super excited because I think I'm going to Disney World early next year. I think we're going to be going to Disney World. Of course, the kids don't know about this, but we're going to surprise them with it. Well, now they do,
because I'm sure they're home watching.
They aren't subscribed to Tech News Today, I'm pretty sure.
Why not?
And if they are, I don't think they make it to 21 minutes into the show ever. They're 7 and 4. They've got a few years. And I am all over this. Ever since we talked about The Void, I think early last year, and it's come up here and there, that's about as close to my personal dream realized when I think of the potential of immersive digital entertainment like VR. VR is cool, but VR mixed with this the space, and there are parts where when you're walking through a forest, let's say, you actually feel something kind of glance across your cheek. They really go to great lengths in some of these in The Void to take you to a new level, a new world, and not just in a visual sense, but in a total experiential sense. And the fact that it's Star Wars at Disney, which by the way is a huge accomplishment for that team, that's the top level. You made it to Disneyland and Disney World. You win.
Yeah, it is exciting. They had a Ghostbusters experience before. I think we're watching that now. We did not get to do it, but apparently some people from CNET and The Verge got. They did not invite us.
No.
Probably because they knew we would win.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even that looks really cool. The Ghostbusters dimensional.
Yeah.
Looks awesome.
It's like laser tag. Were you thinking of this for yourself when you go to Disneyland? Because I don't know if your little girls can fit those giant backpacks with computers on their back.
I'm thinking my 7-year-old probably could. My 4-year-old, yeah, you're right. She probably could not.
Yeah.
But absolutely myself. If they can't make it in, sorry, tough luck. See ya in however long it takes for me to go through it, because I am all about this. I love this idea.
It is, it's like untethered too. That's what, I mean, I never feel completely comfortable when I'm using the Oculus or the Vive, because it's just like, where's the cord?
You know you're going to glance into the cord and unplug it or run into the table and everything falls down or whatever the case may be. But yeah, I'm all for it. And that's what a big accomplishment for that team to suddenly score a deal with Disney and Star Wars. That's just awesome. Facebook's quest to mitigate fake news on the network took another step with an announcement that misinformation in the newsfeed will be accompanied by a related articles feature showing other articles that disprove false information that's spreading on the network. Facebook is opting for giving users information to read to counterbalance false news, as opposed to outright filtering it out or removing it from the network entirely, which could, removing information like that could end up being a slippery slope. So they've mentioned many times in the past that they are hesitant to do that outright for this sort of thing. Hate speech, that's a different story, but here they're going in the direction of offering you alternatives, but alternatives based, on information, sometimes from Snopes or other fact-checking sites, to where you can get more information on the story behind the story, I guess.
Yeah, they've been paying fact-checking organizations. They say they paid factcheck.org $52,283 just for the first 6 months of this year. That's what they paid them to be, fact-checking things.
Yeah, so it seems so small. Seems so little.
For 6 months, it's just one organization.
Facebook.
For 6 months? $52,000 for 6 months?
I don't know. Just like an actual deal with a company, like $52,000 for something as important as like making sure, like considering the weight, the gravity of fake news on the network, $52,000 for a half of a year to a company and a deal that they made to fact check and offer alternative information seems low to me, I guess.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they're also paying like Snopes and other places.
Yeah.
Maybe there's more. And, it is probably low because they're depending on AI for this. Lot too, which they depend on, if someone reacts with disbelief or says that's not true, then that'll, which to me, like, I always just ignore that stuff. Like, I feel like I've been taught that engaging in that fake content will make it more of that kind of fake content appear higher in my algorithm.
Oh, yeah,
so
that's a good point.
I don't say like, hey, Grandma, that's not true. I don't say that because I don't have grandmothers on Facebook.
But if you did, you wouldn't say that to her.
Yeah, I wouldn't. And that was rude. Grandpa, I meant, or
right.
Uncle. Yeah, and, they say, like they said in their press release, like people want more context. And I was like, do they, Facebook? Do they? Or are they just really happy seeing what they already believed anyway?
Yeah, I like to think that people want more context, and some people definitely do. Other people are fine to just read what they got and have that confirm how they feel. But you're right. AI, robots, they're all going to take this over. Apparently, they're improving their algorithms based on what those fact checkers also are saying is true or false, in the hopes that someday down the line, the robots can replace their jobs too. See? $52,000. Don't need to pay that anymore. We've got robots.
Good point. The bad news about Uber has slowed down to a trickle in the past few weeks, actually. But today, the floodgates were opened once again. Bloomberg reports that Uber purchased more than 1,000 defective Honda vehicles from importers, even though the company knew that the vehicles had been recalled. Uber still bought and leased them to drivers in Singapore. That's the first Asian city where the service was available. One of those defective vehicles burst into flames back in January. So the Honda had recalled these Vezels. That's what the car was called.
The Vezel?
The Vezel. In April of 2016 because of an electrical component that would overheat and catch fire. And Uber's accused of leasing the cars Uber in the past has been accused of leasing cars to drivers that they couldn't afford by being an Uber driver. So Uber says they took swift action after the fire, but they acknowledge that they could have done more.
They could have done more. Uber is like the epitome of the phrase, "We're sorry that we got caught."
Yeah.
We're really sorry we got caught, guys. We'll do better next time not getting caught. I don't have a whole lot to add on this. I was under the impression that Honda itself gave them the inside tip on the 1,000 defective cars, to which I was like, well, Honda totally shares responsibility, but it's the importers. And I imagine that means that's less regulated. But Uber knowingly got all of these vehicles, knew that they had a defect, chose not to do anything until it was too late. And then, sorry, we got caught. We'll do something now. Uber. Up next, bots enjoy creating alternative languages that us puny humans can't even understand. But first, let's take a minute to thank Grasshopper. They're the sponsor of this episode. Grasshopper is a virtual phone system designed for entrepreneurs. And Grasshopper actually works just like a traditional phone system, but it requires no extra hardware purchase. You can have the iOS or the Android app that they've made. Callers can reach you wherever you are on your mobile phone through their app. Grasshopper allows you to keep your existing number so you can maintain your brand. And when you make a call, your client on the other end is going to see your Grasshopper caller ID instead of your personal phone number. You simply select a toll-free or a local number. You can record a custom greeting, add multiple extensions for your business. Toll-free numbers, of course, obviously supported, and that's great for marketing and making your business sound even more professional. You can set up department and employee extensions with custom call forwarding to any phone in the world. Get voicemails emailed to you as audio attachments. You can also send and receive SMS text messages from your business number. Join the over 250,000 Grasshopper customers today. Plans start at just $12 per month, and you have a 30-day money-back guarantee. So check it out. You have no reason not to. Turn your smartphone into a business line with Grasshopper. To save $50 on your order, go to trygrasshopper.com/twit. That's trygrasshopper.com/twit. And we thank Grasshopper for their support of Tech News Today.
Fear sells, especially in news headlines. So if you saw a recent headline about Facebook's chatbots creating their own language and Facebook having to shut them down before they took over the world, rest assured that was designed to frighten the pants off of you. I hope it did. But Dave Gershgorn from Quartz says Facebook didn't kill its chatbots because they were too smart. It killed them because they were too dumb. Welcome back to the show, Dave.
Thanks so much for having me back.
So talk a little bit about this panicky headline that we saw earlier this week.
Yeah, totally. So this was a story that actually came out in June. Facebook released this research that they had these little bots that they had trained to talk to each other, to negotiate over like basketballs, apples. And basically what they did is they showed them a whole bunch of conversations that actual people had negotiating over these fake digital objects. And they tried to get the bots to imitate what the humans had done previously. A researcher, Dhruv Batra, who was one of the main researchers on the work, had made a comment that the bots actually started making their own little code, their own language. And this kind of got spun way out of proportion because the code was completely illegible to humans. It was the same letters and words that you had seen the human before. They were just repeated over and over again, or it was in strange combinations that we didn't understand. So like I get it. Like it's naturally we think that like humans, that like robots are scary because they're so smart and good at math, and I don't know. Like, and we've seen all the sci-fi movies, but the intent really wasn't there. And the reason why Facebook stopped these bots is that they just weren't speaking English. They were meant to kind of see if these bots could one day speak with humans in English or in a language that humans would understand. And when they couldn't do that, they just shut it down, and they ended up making ones that did. So they were effectively too dumb to make it through into production.
Or they were afraid. And what would you do if you're afraid of that code? You shut it down. No, I'm sorry. I'm feeding into it. What this kind of reminded me or made me think of is that there must be an application for that, though. Like Facebook shut down this chatbot that suddenly, has figured out how to create, created its own language, is talking a language that we don't understand, which doesn't necessarily make it a bad thing. It just makes it not perfect for the application that Facebook had going on. But have you heard of anyone working on this aspect of AI specifically, and what kind of a use case it might actually have, like what that might actually be beneficial for, having AI create its own language? It's got to be beneficial for something.
So these languages actually come out all the time. The whole point of AI is to reduce complexity in the human world. It's taking an image and turning it into the word apple. If it's an apple or an image of an apple, it's taking our speech, which is like what they call very highly dimensional data, like an audio file, and it turns it into simple words. So what this AI was doing is it was taking these ideas that it learned through human speech and just reducing the complexity. But it just didn't reduce it to the right complexity. It didn't reduce it into the right things. It hadn't learned English correctly. So this actually emerges all the time, and it's just kind of a dead end. And these representations exist like totally behind closed doors. Like the machine, when it's thinking about what a problem is, it doesn't think in English. It thinks in a long string of numbers. It's kind of a misrepresentation of that string of numbers.
So I read in the Fast Company article that the programmers made a mistake, like that they should have put some line of code in there that gave the bots a reward for, speaking regular English. Was that accurate?
Yeah. Yeah, so what the researcher told me is that they wanted to see if they can do it completely, without any prompt. If English itself was enough of a reward, because it was the most effective way of communicating, and it turns out that it wasn't. Maybe it was something that they needed to tweak in the algorithm or add that line of code. I'm not really sure about that, but it was clear that in this test, the bots found maybe a more efficient way to haggle. If they both recognize that over iteration and iteration and iteration that the letters I mean I want 2 apples and you can have 1 banana, that's a more effective way of getting something done.
Isn't that the way human language works as well? Like, we're always abbreviating things and speaking,
totally
saying,
yeah.
That's how our kids are evolving by texting and
LOL.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like totally slang. It's kind of a natural evolution of language in a way, but the bots are just doing it, since they're running thousands and thousands of processes, just doing it really quick.
So when it comes to AI taking over, are you more Team Zuckerberg or Team Elon Musk?
I am Team Zuckerberg, I guess. I think that there are definite things that we need to watch out for with AI. It gives the ability to scale the biases that are found already in our society to make, when you can make decisions at the speed and scale of a computer, there's things that you need to think about. Who's in charge of making those decisions? What data do we give it so that it learns? What, ethics code does the machine have when it's operating in a way that we would expect it to? So I think those questions are a lot more pressing than the potential eventuality that we crack the code for learning and we can have this kind of super intelligence boom that I don't really see a lot of work going towards. People are quietly working on it, but I think a lot more is theory right now.
Well, Dave, thank you so much for joining us. Dave Gershgorn is a reporter at Quartz. Mike Murphy said he calls you the Gersh, but you don't really like it, so we
yeah, I've been called the Gersh from time to time, but I don't take it personally.
I knew it.
Thanks so much for joining us. You can find all of Dave's work at QZ.com. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks.
Take care. Have a good night. All right, feedback time. Hilton writes about our discussion of the Tesla Model 3 this week with Marquez Brownlee. Great interview. He says, my concern would be if you go on a 6-hour trip and there is nowhere to charge, or you have to then wait for charging at your hotel before you can do anything else. I'm not sure if I'm over-exaggerating the range problem, or if the people who review these cars live in cities and only drive in their city and thus never have to worry about range. For example, I'm a college football fan, so 12 Saturdays per year, I drive about 120 miles to games, then 120 miles back. If I do much driving when I'm in the college town, I'm approaching the limit, and I rent an apartment, so I can't set a plug-in for charging the car at home. Yeah, I mean, it obviously doesn't work for everyone. I know that Elon Musk, though, has been really scaling up the amount of charging stations around the country, just taking the USA into account, and has plans for many thousands more very quickly. So I think that's becoming less of an issue, but absolutely the infrastructure still has a ways to go. And if you're in an apartment building, that you can't install a charging capability into, that's going to be a big limiting factor for you. Yeah.
I thought Hilton's point was good too. Like the people that review this, do they just drive around in the cities and they never think about how much regular people actually drive in places where there aren't chargers?
Got to start somewhere, though, and Tesla's done a really good job of getting that total miles, capability up. I mean, it used to be ridiculously low. It used to be to the point where it just really didn't make a whole lot of sense if you wanted to do anything other than light, traveling throughout your city, let's say. Now there's more infrastructure. It's a little bit more capable, and it's a lot more capable in the miles traveled. But yeah, it doesn't work for everyone. But it's a really good point.
And Mike in our chat room, Hilton, if you're listening, he says the solution is just to use an extension cord out your window and just throw it in, plug your car in. So let me know if that works.
Yeah, let me know how that goes.
TNT's fan of the day is Adam Ellis on Twitter, who sent us this screenshot of his podcast listening app saying, after yesterday's Tech News Today podcast, I just have to share how I watch TNT at 3 times speed.
Nope, no way. Don't believe you. You did this just for the screenshot. Who on earth could listen to a podcast at 3 times and understand anything?
Maybe he just enjoys listening to us really fast.
Yeah, that's pretty fast. I don't know how you do that, and if you do, more power to you.
Well, we heard from a lot of people who listen beyond the optimum speed. A lot of people are 1.5ers. There's some of you that are 2s out there.
I switched it. So you know how they said up to 1.25 and then beyond, it gets out of the realm of understanding or whatever. I did switch it yesterday because I wanted to try it for a little bit and see if I got used to it. And I wouldn't have known. So I did that yesterday, and I finally started a podcast this morning. And I wouldn't have known that it was sped up if I hadn't heard the intro music, because the intro music was obviously way faster. But up till that point, there was a little dialogue beforehand, and I didn't realize the difference. It was once that music happened, then I was like, oh, that's right, I sped it up. And then it bugged me the whole time. Yeah. But up until that point, it didn't. So there's something to be said. I'm sure over time I'll get used to it. I'm going to try it for like the next week and see how it goes.
Well, if you're going to show us how fast you listen to TNT, we need to see a video. So record a video and send it to us. Post it on Instagram, Google+, Twitter, or Facebook. Use the hashtag #HowIListenFast to TNT. Don't use that hashtag. How I Watch TNT. Show us how fast you listen, and we'll find it.
Many of us remember what it was like before cable and satellite was a thing. Many more of us remember what it was like before internet video streaming was a thing, and such a dominant thing at that. So are we really that surprised to read the Wall Street Journal piece that details how some millennials, the generation that my generation loves to make fun of, aren't aware that such a thing as a TV antenna exists and brings with it a bunch of totally free TV programming? Many of the shows they pay for on services like Hulu are there, yet they have to put up with the inconveniences like buffering and logging in to watch. And when the internet goes out, in this case, you could still have your TV. All the modern conveniences of having an antenna for your TV.
Now, I saw a lot of people
everyone was passing this around.
Laughing about it, but I mean, they weren't being serious. Like, the guy who said this was not being serious. He wasn't like, I just found this amazing hack. Like, he was being sarcastic. Because it is something that I am sure, Burke, because he was interviewed in several places, and it's in quotes. He says an antenna in quotes, in quotes. So I don't enjoy making fun of millennials, and I think everybody sort of forgets this, and I myself sometimes forget it because we can't get it here.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of places you just simply can't. And so we often have this discussion about how should we be cord cutters, but we still want live TV? And then I get emails like, you can get an antenna, Megan. I'm like, yes, I know, but not here.
Yeah, it's weird. Here is a strange place. I mean, you can put an antenna on the top of your house and you'll have much better luck, but I don't know. For some reason, I'm resistant to that. I don't know why, but I've tried the in-house antenna situations, and that didn't work.
Yeah, I mean, I like to be a cord cutter because you don't have to watch as much advertising. But tvfool.com, if you go there, you can see whether you can get over the air and whether you have to put an antenna on your roof, or you can use your regular TV antenna. But it is true. I mean, I think that my children would be surprised to know that you could get free TV.
I would imagine so. There is some truth to this, that he may have, have come out in different interviews and whatever, but I'm sure there are a lot of people, and maybe millennials a little too old for this particular mindset, because they probably worry if they didn't have an antenna in their home, they probably knew what an antenna was and had heard of it enough to know that it exists. But we're really at a point right now where my kids, they won't know, in 5 years, 10 years, what the heck an antenna is, because we will have never had one while they were alive. And all they know is streaming. And so when you take that paradigm and then you say, oh, but if you plug this into the back of your TV and you get all those shows you normally pay $10 a month for live for free, it almost sounds like a hack. It almost sounds like illegitimate. Is it okay? Is this hacking hardware that gets me access to this free content?
Yeah.
I could completely understand the confusion around this.
Right, because there was also in this article, it's about a guy who sells antennas at a farmer's market, and people say is it legal too? But I mean, if you're just buying some sort of technology at the farmer's market, you might want to ask if it's legal. Also, that's smart.
Yeah, you might as well. Sorry.
I was going to say that, our kids don't know what busy signals are. They don't know what dial tones are. They don't know what rotary
signals.
phones
I hated busy signals.
are. There's all kinds of crazy things that you're just you just realize, oh, yeah, you've never had to experience that.
Yeah, until we go retro, when VCRs come back. When rotary phones come back, we'll get there.
Dial-up sounds.
Yeah. I can't have my internet until my modem negotiates with the computer on the other end for a minute. TNT records live every Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, 2300 UTC at twit.tv/live. You can always be part of the show by emailing us at tnt@twit.tv. Leave us a short voicemail at 260-TNT-SHOW. And find us on Twitter. We're there at Tech News Today TV.
Burke has, he's well actualing us over there about how you can get a few.
All the way over.
Oh, yeah.
Right there.
Yeah, he says in Petaluma you can get a couple of channels with the antenna, but there it is. And please subscribe to our show at twit.tv. And if you want to tweet at me about other things that millennials or younger will never have to experience, please do. I want to collect a big collection of them.
Oh, that'd be good, yeah.
At Megan Maroney.
Yeah, I would like to hear that too. I'm at Jason Howell. Thanks to Kevin for switching the show and pushing buttons and everything. I think you're also editing today, so thank you for that in advance. Okay, I'll give you an advance on this thank you. Just please come through. Thanks to Burke for helping out in the studio. Thanks to you for talking tech with us today. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Bye, everybody.